Hello and welcome to the latest from Hearts Standard. My name is Joel Sked, and once again I am delighted to be joined by Craig Cairns. How's it going, Craig?
I am very well, Joel. How are you doing?
Yes, good. I finally settled back into it after my break. So yeah, thoroughly looking forward to Saturday. Maybe. We are here to talk about Saturday. We are going to solely focus on how Hearts should shape up or could shape up, rather than looking at maybe do that on Friday, looking at the kind of consequences of winning or losing Saturday. Leave that till our time. We're just strictly here to talk about the potential setups that Neil Critchley can go for, as well as discussing just quickly the new contracts handed out to James Wilson and Hampden Park today. But before we get to that, of course, there is a sponsor message. Hearts Standard is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Edinburgh and the surrounding area, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. Before we get on to look at the semi-final and the setup, as Ian Brown notes, not a diamond anyway, we'll come to that, and we'll definitely agree with that. We will just discuss James Wilson and Hampden Park, who have had their contracts extended. You asked Andrew McKinley start of this month, last month, whenever it was, about new contracts for the young players, specifically James Wilson. He did say that he was hopeful of something further down the line, and that has come to pass with James Wilson signing an extension until 2027, and then with potential to with further extensions. And then Hampden Park, who had signed the deal back in November, has extended his until 2028. Very good news.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for different reasons, I think James Wilson is definitely tying an asset down to an extent, whereas Hampden Park is a bit more of, first of all, a reward for the season that he's had, despite this kind of shortcomings. We kind of discussed that a wee bit in detail the last time about, and we'll maybe come on to it a wee bit more when we're talking about Saturday's game, but kind of being relied on more than would have liked at the moment. And I'm sure you and I had a discussion a couple of months ago about Hampden Park, about we wouldn't be surprised if he was maybe on loan next season, or I mean, Hearts have already signed another right back. We were pretty certain that he wouldn't go into next season as the first choice right back for Hearts. He may be given a chance to be a squad player at the start of the season, but he's ahead of his development. So yeah, good news. But definitely they're two very different situations, despite the fact that they seem to be announced as a pair.
Yes, yeah, I think so. I think, again, I don't think anyone wanted, of course, Hampden Forrester would have wanted. Anyone could have expected or predicted that Forrester would have played as many games as he had. There would have been, I think, this season might have been, he'd be working to maybe be involved at some point, but to now play the amount of games he's had, and we'll come on to discuss his inclusion or exclusion at the weekend against Aberdeen. And I felt really sorry for him the last few weeks, that he's in a difficult position. I can understand why he's continued to play, but he's been hung out to dry to an extent. But there's circumstances because of that, and again, feel sorry for because Critchley has not had too many options at right back, and people just make judgments on what they see, and of course they're going to make judgments on Hampden Park because, especially the last few weeks, he's not been great. Against Motherwell, he was really, really poor. But I don't think, like, going forward, he's not the right back for the here and now. But there is still potential there. I think there's people from the club who value him, and like you said, that stability or security for him does give him time to get to this level, even if he's not this level just now. On the flip side, James Wilson is very much for the here and now. And the biggest thing for me was the security it gives Hearts, that you don't want to go into the summer where you're looking at Wilson's contract and thinking he's got 12 months to go and Hearts could lose him either on the cheap or for a kind of nominal fee if he was to sign a pre-contract with someone. So it gives Hearts a bit of security, and it doesn't. I think Wilson, I'm just reading between the lines, but I don't think Wilson and his representatives will want to tie down for a long-term deal because they know of his potential and the view of like maybe going abroad or getting down south. So
his ambitions come into it as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's the Wilson deal is the best for all parties. I think it's the most sensible way to go about it.
Yeah, I'd say so. For the reasons you've outlined, it's because it would have been a different negotiation because he's in a completely different, a sort of not stage, but like completely different trajectory, and his ambitions will have come into that. And although I should say what we said about Forrester being over-relied on, circumstances driven as well, partly. The same could be said about Wilson. Just before he picked up that suspension, he was maybe, I'm not going to say he was playing too much, but he wasn't exactly in great form. And again, he was playing more than, let's put it that way, the way you put it about Forrester, playing more than he would have expected to at the start of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Apologies if it's you went funny there, but I think it's my my signal and my Wi-Fi is still rubbish. We'll move on to discussing the formation against Aberdeen on Saturday. Kind of taking inspiration from Scarce Around the Funnel. They discussed it. I think there was a lot made on Monday's show, and it was good. A lot of good discussion around how Hearts could set up, and it's something I've started to write and be going out tomorrow on the site. But I thought it'd be a good kind of discussion point because there's different options for Critchley, and there's been a lot of talk around the diamond, and there's a few guys who've already put in their suggestions, which I'll read out shortly. So if for those watching, if you do have any suggestions about what you would like to see, both formation and personnel, do leave a comment and we'll try and bring it in. But the Gorgie Boys podcast says, if we do anything, we need to ditch the diamond. 4-4-2, Gordon, Nielsen, McCart, Steinvender, Spittle, Benny, Devlin, Musa, Shanklin, Kabangu. I don't see Penrice there, but I'm guessing Penrice is meant to be a left back rather than Blair Spill. Liverpool Heart says, sorry, typo afternoon, Joe and Craig. I'm dreading Saturday, a long road trip on the day for me. Oh, wow, that is a long road trip. What time are you leaving? And the bus full of Highland Hearts fans. If he starts with a diamond, game over, 3-5-1-1, no wing backs. Oh yeah, he went back and added Penrice. And just to get, Graham says, Wilson and Forrester both come into a struggling side and played far more than they'd expected. There will be always mistakes for youngsters, but neither deserve the criticism they receive. Anyway, getting back to the game on Saturday, a couple of guys have noted someone's Liverpool Hearts gone back three. Graham says back four. The four systems that I am looking at, or the kind of options are, I've kind of grouped 4-4-2 and 4-2-3-1 together because that's just essentially where Shanklin plays. And then you've got the position of the wide men, 4-3-3, 3-5-2, and of course the diamond as well. What are you thinking going into the Scottish Cup semi-final, Craig? Is there any that you're particularly keen on? They've all got issues.
That's it. I mean, I might have to take notes, write down notes as I go here, but that's exactly it. There's pros and cons with each. And I think the form that Hearts are in at the moment, no goals in their last three games, the low of missing out on the top six, it's it's difficult not to think about how to address the negatives first and think of the system that would disguise the flaws more. I think we were in a position not too long ago where Hearts were looking at how to take the game to teams, almost regardless of who they were playing. I mean, I know that was kind of reined in a wee bit for Celtic and the like, but pretty much regardless of who Hearts were playing, they were taking the game to the opponent, home and away. This, with what's at stake for Critchley as well, I just wonder whether we might see something a bit more. I don't know if conservative is the right word, because I mean, I guess like regardless of what shape you play, you can play any shape and play it attacking or defensive. But I wonder whether we might see something akin to the back three that we saw at Celtic Park, without being as standoffish as they were in that game. They still pressed Celtic, but they still let Celtic have a lot of the ball. So I'm thinking about like maybe that shape, but not allowing Aberdeen to have as much possession. The instant things that pop out of the flaws with that are I don't know. Another thought just popped into my head because Hearts played it a quite attacking way with Shankland in the 10 there. But there's no space for Spittle, it feels like, in that system. And we can have a discussion about Spittle. I know Spittle's kind of gone off the boil, but I feel like the consensus is that the shape hasn't helped Spittle.
Yeah.
So while I quite like the idea of that shape, I like how Milne comes in on the side of that and is comfortable pushing up and becoming almost like a left back in support to Penrice. Penrice is comfortable playing as a winger. He linked well with Kabangu in that game. I think what happens on the other side, there's a lot more question marks, but Steinwender also gives you that option of playing that sort of support role. He's comfortable enough on the ball and to step into midfield and things. But yeah, the big thing for me is that it means that you probably don't play Spittle in that formation. So I don't know what your thoughts on the back three are, first of all. And the right wing back, we've not even spoke about who plays right wing back yet.
Yeah, so that's what I alluded to, is that every system has an issue, and the two I would either like to see is the 4-4-2, very similar to how we played against Dundee. I know that's kind of been used as the example of what that formation can be, and the back three, the setup against Celtic that you mentioned, and I think the former gets the best, like you said, gets the best out of Spittle and Penrice. Again, it's not just Spittle that's been impacted. Penrice hasn't had as big a impact going forward as he has. Having spoken to him for an interview for Hearts Standard before last month, he explained, and he was pretty honest about how he'd been told to temper his runs. Like, he was saying that there was a time around Christmas where it was just mental how much running he was doing, and that's his style. He goes, and then Hearts kind of viewed it that he was starting to get targeted down that side, and then they've kind of tempered it, and it's even further with the diamond formation where he has to pick and choose when he goes. But then I think the back three is back 3/5. I think it gives you the best opportunity to win a game, or just taking this game in isolation. I think it's the best setup for it. And where I'm split, and so we'll come on to talk about the right hand side, but where I'm split is I wouldn't play Spittle in that in that three. You've got that you can have him as an option off the bench if you need to change things up, which is always
losing your set piece deliveries then as well. That could be key.
Yeah, I mean, you still got Penrice who can take ace from one side, who's been pretty dangerous. I'm not sure who takes it from from right.
Forrester did
right
at Celtic Park for that Nielsen chance.
Yeah, so I'm not sure he'll be playing. So yeah, that I think Spittle would naturally drop out, and then the question mark again, without getting into the right hand side yet, is whether you go with an attacking trio or you go and play with a hard, like just a midfield that will control the game in and out of possession, i.e. Devlin, Benny, and then either Neuenhoff or Grant, and then you'd leave Wilson in reserve. I don't know what your view on that kind of that makeup in there, because I think it's important to say is that I think you can get away with just playing Benny and Devlin in the midfield, because Aberdeen, the way they play or the way they set up, they've got Nisbet and Pappy Gay playing behind Nisbet, so you've only got Leighton Clarkson and Palaversa in there, and neither of them are dominating midfielders out of possession. So they want the ball, but they're not going to give you. They're not going to kind of charge about and win it in that side, because Graham Shinney's playing left back.
I think he moved into. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, sorry. I thought maybe earlier on my mic disconnected, and I've just been getting worried about it. I'd like to see Hearts win the midfield battle. I think that is going to be quite key, and I think it's there to be. One. And to add to what you said there, I think in the last match, I think Shinnie moved into the middle. I know he's played left back quite a bit recently, and it's kind of coincided with their return to form. But he did. I'm sure he moved into the centre towards the end of the Rangers game.
He did.
So I don't know if they'll maybe do that. I mean, they still didn't see the game out, but I don't know whether they'll maybe do that for this game. But yeah, I'd like to see a midfield that isn't as open as like the 4-2-4 can be. But as I said, that back three setup, I'd like to see Spittle involved one way or another. So that's what kind of pushes me away from going with that. I do like the idea of regardless up front. I mean, I do think in the 4-2-4 it can become more of a 4-2-3-1 anyway, with Shanklin dropping in. He's just naturally going to do that. And I think with Cabangu playing up front on his own, okay, that might mean it gives us that bit of extra security behind, and it might mean one fewer body up front, like if Wilson doesn't start, for instance. But it does mean that he would naturally be playing more centrally. He naturally goes forward. Shanklin naturally drops in. And then on that pitch, we have seen at times this season, more so early at the start of this year, that dynamic and Shanklin finding Cabangu with through balls, McDermott Park, Dens Park, it's happened. And on that pitch where Aberdeen will fancy themselves and come for the game, there are going to be spaces, and that's where you could, it could solve the issue of Cabangu being stuck out on the left wing.
Yeah, I mean, that's things like speaking to John Robertson earlier in the week, and he talked about, like, at the moment, Cabangu is the most threatening heart striker, but the best partnership is Cabangu and Shanklin. It's natural. And you were speaking about Spittle and just thinking a bit more about Spittle. I think there is a possibility that you talk about controlling the midfield, and I asked you about whether you play Devlin, Benny, Neuenhoff / Grant, or Benny, Devlin, and then Shanklin the head. There's actually a strong argument that you play Benny, Devlin, and Spittle, and then Spittle was more of the advanced. That's the role he played last season for Motherwell. It was essentially like a number 10, and then you're essentially having just replicating what they did, where they had Spittle and one other kind of number 10 forward behind Theo Bair, i.e. Elton Cabangu is someone who's going to run and beyond and look to get on through balls. So yeah, the more we talk about it, and the more I've been thinking about it, is the back three is is/5 is the one I want to see. I know it's caused.
Ironically, the formation that nobody wanted to see when Critchley was appointed.
But then I think everyone and anyone would take the back three over the diamond in the short term. But I mean, the big question before we get to look at maybe a couple other options, the big question is, who do you play on that right hand side? Because going back to the kind of start of the video, I don't think Adam Forrester should play. I think it's time for him to be taken out of the firing line and kind of just like, this is the time to take a young player and take the pressure off it. So it's a case of, do you play, if it's a back three, then it allows you to play someone like Alan Forrest. Okay, I know it's not the perfect solution, but as like an attacking wing back.
I mean, I got the squad up earlier. I mean, I think we're talking about two completely different players if it's a back four or a back three.
Yeah.
If we're playing Forrester. If we're not playing Forrester, I think we're in agreement with that. So right back, I see some people mentioning Steinwender. For me, I know that you can replace him with a centre back that's pretty decent, but that for me is moving one of the few players that still performed to a decent level through this poor run over the last 3 games. You're moving him from his favoured position. Nielsen, I'd prefer in there. I know it's not his natural position. It's not Steinwender's natural position. But again, I think they're on different levels, but I think they share similar attributes. I think he's good enough on the ball to play right back. Nielsen, he's physical enough and got defensive instincts enough to play that role as well. Just maybe doesn't have the pace or doesn't have the... I don't know. He's not like a sort of marauding centre-back. I wouldn't expect him to be getting down the wing to provide width in a diamond, for instance. But I'd say he would be my bet for a back four. Again, I know it's not ideal going into a Scottish Cup semi-final, but what is at this point? Sorry, on you go. Before I mention...
Sorry, I mean, the right back, there's also... I know he's played it a couple of times. I would be probably reluctant to do it, but Stephen Kingsley, which is, again, back four. It's not ideal.
Against Dundee United. Hated it. It's just he's so one-footed. This isn't anything against him. But there's just... Like, he never let the ball run across him. He never feigned to. He always came back in the pitch in that game, and it just affects passing angles too much.
Yeah.
I feel it does too much in the centre-back role, never mind a full-back role. I think you can get away with it. The odd time you get somebody who's really good going forward and cuts in on his right foot as a left-back and things like that. There's the odd occasion where it does work. But for me, it just didn't work because he's arguably not a fullback anymore. He's arguably a centre-back now, given his advancing years and his injuries and these kind of things. And again, it's no harm to him. It's just like the natural sort of development of what can happen for a football player. So for me, I'd rather right footer there. I'd rather Nielsen than Kingsley. Sorry.
So my other suggestion, just looking at the comments, is the YouTube Disciple says Penrice, like Hickey, can also play on the right side. And Raymond Wren, if playing Penrice as a left wing back, who do you think would be better as a right wing back? I think Forrester's only real option. But what I would say on round Penrice is that he has played on the right hand side for Livy and Thistle, but as a forward, as an attacker rather than a right back. But again, if you're looking for... you could potentially get away with playing him as a right wing back, and then you're playing Harry Milne as a left wing back. But this is this just feels like overcomplicated matters.
Again, moving one of the better performers across the season out of his favoured position. So and if you're right wing back, I think the only person in the squad that looks like is a candidate is Alan Forrest, and then. I think if we're talking about one other potential option, which you've seen in football across the board before, both wing back and right back, is there's sometimes transferable skills from a defensive midfielder to right back. Which one? I'm not sure. But, I mean, I'm sure Neuenhoff would play it to a decent level, for instance. But again, do you take that kind of risk in a semi-final? And I'm just talking about that. I'm just making that point broadly about there's some transferable skills there between defensive midfield and fullback. It happens. Sometimes players can play both. There have been examples of that over the years. So that's another thing, but I don't know. Again, yes, I'm clutching at straws. Exactly. I'm just listing all the possible options. But we're now, I mean, I totally agree. George Cow's saying that. I totally agree. Or Cow, sorry. And we're now at the situation where one's been sold, one's been injured twice, and we've tried a left back there and it's not worked. And we're in danger of ruining a career of a young player. So definitely clutching at straws, but just listing all the potential options. I think it'll be one of the first ones we mentioned, like Nielsen at right back or Forrest at wing back. I think it'll be one of these.
And Miroslav Martinek asks, why not play 4-3-3? So this was one of the ones that I included and then writing it, and I was thinking of the 11 that you'd select for the 4-3-3, and the 11 that you'd potentially select for 4-3-3 looks awfully like the 11 that you'd select for the 4-4-2 diamond. And I think you run into similar issues where you potentially get exposed at the wide areas. I know I'll bring in some comments again later on, but a couple of guys have mentioned the chat, the threat that Aberdeen have on the wide areas with Keskinen and Shane and Morris. Just their pace is really, really impressive. That's something that Hearts don't have. So then you're potentially even getting exposed at wing back, and then Wilson, Cabangu and Shankland are not a natural three in a traditional sense as an attacking if you're playing 4-3-3, and it puts a lot of pressure on that midfield three. But again, as I mentioned, that with Aberdeen only having really two men in there, you could potentially get away with it if they played Clarkson and Palaversa.
Yeah, I mean, what have you become any clearer on what you think it'll be after having this discussion?
No, I mean, we'll get a better idea tomorrow when you go to the press conference, and maybe get a wee bit of insight or idea from Critchley when he's talking about it. I'm sure if you don't ask it, then someone certainly will go around the diamond and the questions they've had over it, and he's switching on Saturday. So I think we got a better idea tomorrow. But I want to say I'm confident it's not going to be the diamond. And for example, James Govan says, if it's a diamond, I'll be jumping back in the car and be back in Edinburgh before Aberdeen score their first.
I made that joke to yesterday. I think there's some people that will just leave if it's a diamend.
Yes,
and also we should say, regardless of shape, it could very well just be Forrester at right back as well. We're kind of like speaking as if he's not going to, but he could very well play a diamond or not.
Yeah, so just bringing in some other comments. Graham asks, could there be a possibility of Kingsley at right back? Discussed that. Just seeing 4-4-2 is a way forward. Lewis says, if plan A is Shanks, Cabangu and Wilson all on, what's plan B? Halkett maybe. But yeah, I think that's a good point. I think one of the things I like about not playing the three of them is that you have an option to come off the bench and it allows you to change things up or just freshen things up. So I think that's important. What else have we got? Sorry for just doing this. I'll get to the Vargas question soon. for what Penrice offers on the left, it doesn't justify what issues it causes on the right. Gordon, Halkett, Steinbender, McCart, midfield of Penrice, Devlin, Benny, Callum, Spittle, and Shanks behind Elton. So that's Spittle playing on the right of midfield. Okay, he's played it before. I don't think that's his best role. Should we expect Jan Danda? I don't think we can expect Jan Danda to start.
He didn't even come off the bench when we needed the goal.
George Cow says it has to be 4-4-2 in caps lock. Anything else is asking for trouble. We do not have the players to work a diamond midfield. And yes, that's another thing is with the diamond midfield is on a game like Saturday, I want Cammy Devlin in that because there is a lot of ground to cover and you just want someone to... You just want Cammy Devlin to have a Cammy Devlin performance. I'm not sure you can get that if he's playing like a kind of shuttling role. And then you've got a Gorgie Boys podcast saying nobody playing Khartoum, which says a lot. The fact that we mentioned them, I don't know how you feel, but I was really, really disappointed. Again, he's a new signing, coming into Scotland, getting used to it, etc., etc. I'm not going to be too harsh on him, but I was really, really disappointed with his performance on Saturday. And I just don't think this Saturday's the game for him, certainly to start.
Yeah, I think after what happened last week, yeah. I mean, if he hadn't played last week and last week hadn't happened, then I would have been potentially arguing for him for a place in the team. But and I would have been a few weeks ago as well if we were doing this. But he just can't play him after that. He had a nightmare, and he needs to sit this one out. I think he might be able to come off the bench at some point. That's definitely different when you come. There's not the same. There's like not the same build up, and there's not the same nervousness as getting on the ball. You're more coming on when things have already developed in the game. So that's more of an option. But yeah, he just for similar reasons that we're talking about Forrester, and I would argue even more because as I was saying the other day, I think a lot of the issues Forrester faced against Motherwell were brought on by Khartoum. So yeah, he's someone that I said even before that I hoped that we'd see more of next season, but we're running the risk of this being quite an expensive mistake if he doesn't because of his age and thing and the contract that Hearts have given him. It's not like it's like a certain amount of money that you'd have to cut their losses with if not that I'm saying that's going to happen this summer. I mean, I think he is going to be given a chance next season, but he's got a lot of winning over to do at this point, I think. Yeah, and again, it's one of those where, as with a few players, you're just wondering whether it's, again, you look at character, etc., and these things that the manager can't control, but how players have been impacted by the roles that they're playing. Khartoum is right off a diet because we thought he was going to be playing the right off the midfield 4, and then he's obviously a lot of fans want to see him as a number 10. So again, this could be circumstance as well. James says if Skedkar says a diamond not happening and we play it, then I'm unsubscribing. That's fair. That's fair. If we play the diamond on Saturday, I want to unsubscribe. And yeah, just before we finish up, there was a few questions about. There was quite a few questions about Vargas. I have not heard any. I know he's posted something on Instagram and it looked like he was back in Costa Rica. I've not heard anything regarding that. I did. He was heavily involved in training last week, and he looked in good spirits. And from kind of what I heard, that he was certainly in contention for a starting spot against Motherwell. So we'll find out more tomorrow at the press conference and find out what the situation is. But it certainly was strange that he wasn't on the bench at the very least against Motherwell, having been involved in training. Looking ahead to that match. So yeah, we'll find out more and we'll be report it as soon as we know more. So yeah, I think to conclude, I think we've probably decided on a 3-5-2 with about 17 different potential options at right wing back. I know. It's just like the way, like all the different options that we've mentioned, it just like shows you what a state that the fans are in going into this game.
Yeah, I know. And again, I was speaking to mates about this yesterday. Hearts have got a really big. I think there's around. I wasn't counting all the blue dots on the e-ticketing, but there must be a few hundred tickets left. And I looked at that this morning, so it might have been. It might be even fewer. And I just wonder how big a difference that'll make. Whether it'll galvanise the team like it did when. I look back to the Scottish Cup semi-final in 2006, where Hearts had a bigger support there than Hibs, and everyone just seemed to be galvanised. But again, we're coming into this game in a completely different position than we were back then. Or if the bigger crowd will be more likely to turn, I do think it'll be an interesting dynamic. But as George says, this is going to be a physical game. We need players that will stand their ground and be up for the battle. Did you flash this one up?
I did, yes. Just to go back to a point I was making about defensive midfielders at right back or at full back. There's a good point by John Hurd here saying Critchley played Boateng as a defensive midfielder at right back. At the end of the Petro Cup game, it didn't work, failed to block the cross. It led to the Penrith handball. And also to add to that, he was brought on at right back or moved to right back against Falkirk and wasn't in position yet by the time we had conceded the second goal.
Oh, yeah, he was moved there, I think.
What a season.
Oh, yeah, he was moved there. Jeez. Oh, I keep saying when will it end, and but you don't want to. I want to win the Scottish Cup, but lose on Saturday. You may as well just end it. End the season at that. We will talk about ending things. We will end the show there. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and a big shout out to Ullapool Hearts, whose bus leaves Inverness at 6 a.m. He has to leave Ullapool at 4. Am I pronouncing that right? 4:30 a.m. Home about 11 p.m. If no extra time pens or A9 accidents like most Saturdays. So if the worst happens on Saturday, I think the vast majority can maybe console themselves that are not having to travel back to Ullapool to having watched Hearts. So there is that. But until maybe Friday, might be back on Friday just to discuss more. Have a very good week and continue to look on heartsstandard.co.uk. Craig put up an excellent interview with Pasquale Bruno today. He was man of the match in the last semi-final. Hearts played against Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup, and he talks about his move to Hearts and being at Hearts, and there'll be more to come from Pasquale Bruno, John Robertson and Paul Ritchie on Friday, looking back at that semi-final, and there is plenty of other stuff going up and from the press conference tomorrow. But yes, I will stop speaking now. Thank you and goodbye.